Please subscribe the channel, press the like button and activate the notification. Mariam. You bluish coastal stolen cities, you violet shades of paradise. The maniac's apple. Is it you? Sweat fills thy body, bathes, odorizes, ensconces thee. Ratifies you to worship rituals, for a new story begins of the lifeless one's womb. That is how Mariam scintillated in her lover's eyes when she danced Scheherazade. Sayyidat al-Maqam is one of the Algerian author Wasini Al A'raj's novels. He wrote it at 1991, yet was first published at 1996. Now, before providing my personal commentary on the novel, I'd love to present you a glimpse of the novel, in my own way. It first takes place in a hospital. Tonight, he consigned his lover, the heart of his goddess, student, friend and soul has stopped. The empty whiteness of the hospital has dragged her to the coldness of the morgue. Mariam's story. A girl who was born during the independence period, her father was killed days before the independence. No one knows where his grave lies down. Some people argue about the fact that he did not die in the way we know. He went back home after independence to find his wife married to his brother, hence he hanged himself on a branch of the Soli carob tree in the villages. A truth that her mother is unaware of, a truth she is uncertain about, one that is proved by her uncle Abbas' eyes. It all started with the marriage of Mariam's mother to her cousin Hassan, who went to fight in the War of Independence only after 1 month of their marriage, the war he never gets back from it. Aftermath 2 months, his family received the news. He was killed during one of the fights. Henceforth, her mother was widowed after a man she knew for 1 month. In consequence, her mother-in-law informed her that she will be marrying her brother-in-law, Abbas. Mariam's mother could not object. Her society opposes emotions and individuality. The wedding was cold, a martyr's brother and his wife. When the signs of her pregnancy showed, the neighbors' gaze and gossip deeply harmed her, asking her whether the baby is Hassan's or Abbas. Nonetheless, she only cared about the fact regarding her weighted motherhood. On the contrary, Abbas could not stand their gaze and gossip. For that, he took her out of the village to live in Sidi al-Abbas, in which he worked as a municipality employee. Mariam was born early. Abbas realized she was Hassan's daughter, not his. Her mother was thrilled with having her. She was in fact having a piece of Hassan. Many years passed and no pregnancy occurred. Abbas becomes more furious. Blackness has increased in his heart, deflating his anger on Mariam and her mother. He asks her for more children. They consulted a doctor who tells her that there is nothing wrong with her. Abbas hides what the doctor told him. He left the home for weeks, then came back wrapping himself with religious intolerance. He preoccupied his life with praying and worshipping, neglecting his job until he lost it. In Sidi al-Abbas neighborhood, a consequence gathered Mariam, the country girl, with Anatolia, the Russian artist. Anatolia invited Mariam to learn ballet dancing in Sidi al-Abbas School for Fine Arts. Her mother agreed in order to get her out of the house where her uncle Abbas turned a religious addict. Mariam loved ballet. She spent her time between studying and ballet at Anatolia's house, more than she did at her house. Her mother encouraged her to maintain following her dream. She bought her tape player, recorder, and tapes despite of her uncle's disapproval. Mariam persisted in dancing, for she found life within it. Mariam's neighborhood with all its lovers, maniacs, artists lost its spark. Its large streets and open doors, as much its people's hearts, got terminated along with the expanded crawling of the guardians of intentions. Doors are shut, hearts and minds are tightened. Lovers and artists departed. Faces covered with beards, and women enshrouded with black coffins. The worst was that Sidi al-Abbas School for Fine Arts is closed. Mariam's dancing sky has closed. Anatolia moved to the capital with the intervention of the Ministry of Higher Education and the Ministry of Culture. Mariam promised her she won't let go of her. Thus she welcomed her in their house in Hayawadi, whilst her uncle Abbas was in prison after embroiling with a strict group trying to break in the court to find himself betrayed from who he regarded as friends. They went without castigation whilst he spent time in prison. He was enraged with what he has experienced, thus he wrote a message to the leader of the group, isolating himself away from them. To illustrate, he sold their house at Sidi al-Abbas, bought a new one at Hayawadi. Abbas decided to work in a grocery store. Yet this happiness got interrupted once again for his reunion with religious intolerance. He started restraining and suppressing Mariam. Her mother opposed him, without negation. His isolation escalated by reading more books, praying in the mosque, along with meeting his people outside the house. Mariam has been always astonished by the hypocrisy of her uncle and his fellows, including a neighbor. When a slight earthquake hit, they all ran out of their houses and her uncle Abbas left her mother behind him. The neighbor left his wife and his 5 daughters, after saving his one son. Her essential wonder remained, why does her mother, the wildflower, prefer to stay within such a misery? Mariam's family is not big, including her aunt and her husband, as well as an old family friend as his family, whom their sons, Hamoud, visits often recur to offer unnecessary help, for instance, connecting a phone line for the house and helping Mariam getting a driving license. At one day, her mother informed her that Hamoud offers to marry her, counting his good deeds under the light of convincing Mariam of the necessity of marriage. Mariam did not reject. At the end of the day, the life with Abbas is pushing her to an edge. Even though she insisted on her path in dancing and music, Hamoud approved. Mariam got married. They went living in the family's house. In the night of their wedding she could not allow him to touch her. He realizes his critical situation since their society demands proof for her virginity. He cuts his hand, presenting them a blanket full of blood drops, taking it as Mariam's, to hush them. Days past their wedding, Mariam is still unable to give him her permission. He was patient unlike their society. Enraged, furious, irritated, he raped Mariam one night. She has put an end for everything, declaring their matrimonial bed full of spikes. Asking for divorce, she was opposed with threats defending the Eastern manhood. Mariam took what she has brought with her and abandoned him. With all his intimidated reaction haunted her for days and days, giving her shivers of fear. When she stood in front of him in the court, her heart was filled with pity, for that she asserted Hamoud as captivated by shackles of tradition. The judge ended their marriage. Mariam went flying back to her mother's lap. Mariam found tranquility in dancing, helping her recuperating her soul. She later presented the marriage of Figaro, but it was a disappointment for her and Anatolia. Mariam argued that the persona of the dance was not close to her heart, which caused her heaviness. She needs a work that will give her airy blood. Anatolia decided to portray another artistic work named Barbaric, influenced by the life of Fatima Al-A'raj. She was not content with solely reading her biography. Anatolia aimed to touch her by the air surrounding her. To search the secluded dales she had to walk through, she asked Al-Shaykh about her bloom and journey. Her heart was filled with Fatima. Draw her a beautiful dancing canvas, with Mariam, its heroine. In the show day, Mariam aviated on stage, reflecting Fatima Al-A'raj's life with her style, moving the spectator to a world of distinctiveness. The 2-hour show ended, with the instructor removed from his dream. He fall for Mariam. She is no longer Anatolia's friend and his student. Now, she is metamorphosed to something else. He greeted Anatolia on the show, praised Mariam for her stunning performance, then rushed to walk under the rain. He noticed Mariam's car, who offered to take him to his house. They kept talking all way. She told him of her upcoming involvement in a closed practice, for what Anatolia has promised her of fulfilling her dream about dancing Scheherazade. Curse that day. What infernal dreary Friday incidents first fired in Tuesday evening. At the tight alleys of Hiawatha, altercations were violent, drastically increasing, and the human wave invaded all that is governmental in front of it. The president issued speeches stuffed with national discourse, in which he forgot to mention that the country has no place for the poor anymore. He neglected the stolen goods under the cape of justice. In Friday 7th October of autumn of 1998, the city woke up different. The sea has gone and birds have vanished. The sky narrowed. Mariam could not stay home. She got to the street with her niece to find a human flood before them, followed by a fall of bullets. Groups attacked military forces. Breaking down the barracks car, the flood penetrated through the hiatus to burn the police official officer. Shooting seems to be endless. The air is filled with black smoke and the disgusting smell of burned human flesh. Mariam was in shock. Shrieks of the car's driver dragged her back to reality. She ran to help him and her niece could not stop it. Before she succeeded in saving him, an enormous feeling of painful heat stroked her. Moreover, blood filled her head and face. A black wave of pain drowned her. Later, Mariam woke in the hospital. Her country presented her with a head bullet that can never be extracted. The doctor acquainted her with news of her good luck, for what she is still alive. Mariam did not sense any luck. To steal her time from death's claws, she has to remain motionless, and her head must be quietly moved. She broke down. Does this mean she is unable to be Scheherazade? Mariam left the hospital with a bag filled with drugs, and a heart filled with anguish. Mariam does not give up. She barely convinced Anatolia with performing in Scheherazade, and Anna started to set proper scenery and music for the dance. The hand of those with filthy intentions has reached the ball. It destroyed it under the subterfuge of spreading immorality. When the guardians of intentions pervade, they overrun everything with hot wind, with drought to crush hearts and burn voices. Screaming with voices of obsolete ages, save the land from westernization. They are enemies of art and literature. Closing galleries every day, violently shut down theaters, they infiltrate between the cracks of the city. There it's cancer. Students gathered in order to clean and organize the dance ball. It cannot be allowed to disappear quietly without music, without dancing. It cannot be the end. Mariam wants to finish her dream. She determines to steal her last dance, Scheherazade, from death fangs. All students secretly practiced the show assigned in spring. It is possibly Anatolia's last show. They give her threats every day. Stole her, broke into her house, destroyed her tapes, killed her spoiled dog cold-heartedly. No help from the police or the headmaster. The guardians of intentions have infiltrated the core. It is ominous. Darkness crawls covering the country. Power collapses before the people of intent. Corruption is like Frankenstein, who created his monster and lost control over it. Gentlemen are on the run. In the end, everyone flees a sinking boat. This country needs something neither one of them has. Mariam invited her teacher and boyfriend to attend her last training at the municipality hall. He showed up in his thick coat. Mariam loved to see him dressed in it, envied him, because his father left him a memory. Whilst she lacks any memory, sat beside Anatolia, who told him with great anguish that Scheherazade might not be held. Tonight can be Mariam's only performance. Sadness filled his heart. Why does an artist love her life is killed at his country? Music is up. Mariam shows gracefully in her blue, violet-bathed silky dress. Bowing, flowing, shrilling in every move, plunging in Scheherazade with each step. Melting in time, recalling her story, screaming for every killed women before her, circulating in methodical chaos. The empty hall is filled with Mariam's enchantment. It has been a week since Mariam's only audience-less performance, with confirmed news. The dance of Scheherazade will not be performed. The Islamic director of the municipality hall has slammed its door in their faces. and Anatolia got fired from the Higher Academy of Fine Arts after a quarter-century in the country. Mariam and the instructor drove her to the airport, with a heart filled with sadness. For she came to this country to fulfill her dream. But disheveled politics plundered her from everything. At the airport, Mariam and Anatolia embraced one another while shedding tears of farewell. Anna apologized for not yielding Scheherazade to the public. Mariam smiled, saying no one could steal her performance that night. She defied death in dancing Scheherazade. Anatolia departed. Mariam collapsed within her instructor's arms, for separating from her old friend. Mariam did not want to go back to her house, both sitting at the beach. This country has killed her twice. Once with a bullet staying in her head, another with kidnapping her friend and tutor, Anatolia. She cursed the country with its thieves and extremists, cursed the people with intent. She poured her heart out, with rain unable to stop her, with a great and horrible despair. Both get in the car. Mariam's headache is terrible, he begged, taking her home. She rejected and begged him to take her to the Academy's dance hall. It might be her last visit. They drove to the dance hall, finding groups of people. Mariam ran inside. Unpermitted to enter. According to a man dressed in white, the mayor possessed the hall from its manager to shelter the victims of the capital's earthquakes. Mariam shouted with anger and rejection. Using all her strength under the endless flow of rain, the mayor came in a manner that does not differ from the form of his predecessor, talking in a middle-aged language as a proof of his religiosity. Her lividity increased. She eloped to the hall. Finding scrambled humans with loud voices, a harmful rudimentary that pollutes the artistic space. Students of the academy gathered around her with anger and sorrow. Police has arrived. Mariam welcomed them with dread. They raped her hall, her temple, her memory. Police did not help. On the contrary, they asked her to leave. She cursed them all, yet what benefits cursing have in a looted country? Exhaustion overcame Mariam, and her instructor drove her home. At the next day, a phone call from her doctor and his friend tells him about Mariam's critical condition. The bullet has decided to end the misery for Mariam, who turned to an empty vessel. Disappointment filled his heart. They stole everything. Yet Mariam asked to see him for the very last time, wanting to hear him reading the records about her in his manuscript, the one he hid from her for years. She wants him to bring her Scheherazade's music. The time has passed. There is no place for anything now, but for death. He got to the hospital holding his manuscript, and Rimsky-Korsakov's ballet music tape. Scheherazade, in his black leather bag. The hallway is not ending. The hospital grows with every step, with death lurking in every corner. He met his friend, the doctor, who tells him, "It is the end. The bullet is moving to tear everything that comes in its way, to prey on any power left in Mariam." He enters the room. She welcomes him with a champed smile, glad to see him in his thick coat. He sat next to her and kissed her hand, without shedding a tear, with no intention to believe that the end has come. However, the truth was drawn on her face and on the doctor's as well. Her face has turned yellow. Her eyes lost their blueness due to the white leak in them. The doctor left the room. Scheherazade is played. He started to read from the manuscript. Mariam closed her eyes while holding his hands. Along with the end of the symphonic suite, the doctor came back to announce the time of Mariam's death. The instructor yelled, "It cannot be. Mariam cannot die in this shameful white space. Mariam shall die on the stage. All of you are lying, her hand is still warm." His friend pulled him out the room. For he knows what Mariam is for him. Realizing his eternal loss standing at the door, his friend could not find any word to comfort him. The instructor left, never looking back. Walking at every street Mariam has stepped in, memories distressed him. He who farewelled her moments ago. She rested forever while hearing his voice reading his unfinished manuscript, the one he will never finish. He stumbled over the waves Mariam felt for, over the sea she admired until the end. He wanted to scream, to strike until the universe agitate, until the city erupts towards the raging sea. He was gnawed by the shivery places, those empty of her voice. Sorrowful for his father, martyred for a homeland, one sold by its new politicians, a father who did not leave but his coat and his name. Sorrowful for his lost 10 years in academia, an international doctorate in aesthetics and classical art criticism. The despicable honoring from the President of the Republic along with another 1,000 artists, a honoring he did not attend. Followed by a teaching job, underestimated by his colleges and not him. How could he, for it was the opportunity to know Mariam, who never feared the people of intent, who chose to die passionately. He was awoken from his daydreaming by 5 bearded men of the city, those if you are different from them. You are the enemy. He stood in front a police officer who informed him of being a suspect. The instructor lost his words. How could he tell such person that Mariam has died? That he feels incredibly lonely. He explained his profession as a classical art professor, opposed with the ugliest insults for art by the officer. He remained silent. He could not comprehend negotiating a dinosaur-like mind. Expelled with total contemptible, he thought. The land of fear has arrived, grounded on corpses and organs of those who see. All doors and windows shall be shut. For the horrible fading moment to arise. He did not stop, wanting to departure from the city forever. He must arrive to the bridge, the one connecting the heights of the city. He reached it, tired, drained, lethargic, and disjointed. He wanted to throw his thick coat off bridge, yet interrupted by Mariam's love for it. Eventually hanging the coat on the bridge, he shredded his manuscript, let it to the ground burdened with rain. He envisioned Mariam smiling, felt the warmth of her heart. He stood at the bridge, falling to nothingness. This is how the novel ended. I hope I have presented it in an interesting way for you. Now allow me to present my personal opinion. Throughout the novel, we lived Mariam's life, who faced many psychological obstacles from a young age. By living with her uncle, Abbas, who was driven by his incapability to have children, his religious intolerance, and his endless comparison with his brother Hassan to affecting Mariam and her mother in a negative way. Yet Anatolia's existence has allowed light in Mariam's life, exposing her to ballet and her love for art. We lived with her failed marriage to Hamoud due to misconceptions in society, which imposed unlimited pressure on them. We felt happy for her relationship with her instructor, for the happiness they brought to each other's experience. We grieved when she was shot in the head. When a corrupted society denied her from fulfilling her dream, leading her to an inevitable death. The novel focused on the political side of that society, along with the delusion of democracy and financial corruption that increased the size of the poor class in the country. Furthermore, how the people of intentions took advantage to penetrate society and eliminate applied art, literature and human spirit in the name of religion. The novel mentions some social attitudes, including marrying a widow to her husband's brother regardless of emotions, as well as the norm of proving the virginity of the wife on the wedding night. As if the female is the only responsible being for the honor of the society, illustrating that this community forgot that honor is immorality amongst people. It argues that this community has forgot that its soul exists in art and literature. Considering that, this country assisted the people of intentions in killing the dream of artists and authors. Starting with eliminating Anatolia, killing Mariam with agony, ending with the instructor killing himself with a feel of loss. Ultimately, I wanted to provide final comments. First, I hope that everyone will be able to read the novel. Its language is captivating, especially the description of Mariam's dance of Scheherazade. You must read it yourself in order to draw her movements and body language in your mind. Second, I like the idea of introducing some characters in the novel with attributes without mentioning their names, adding a sense of suspense to the novel. Third, I wanted to mention that the novel contains some sexual hints, but for justice it was not mentioned in a cliché way, yet it was a part of the story, flourishing its details. I wanted to mention this point because I personally consider that this novel is suitable for people above 18 years old. Thanks for your generous watching. If you like the video, please subscribe the channel, press the like button and activate the notification.